We can spend decades thinking we're one thing, but unless we feed that emotional, physical, spiritual, and intellectual columns in our life, we actually never really uncover who and what we are. And when you do the who and what you are work, the investment just pays off everything. You must start disciplining your behavior, your outcomes, your mind, and your emotions about how people view you, because it's really none of your business. What people think, it's really none of your business. The spirituality really brings out and maybe limits your entitlement in terms of what's fair, what's not fair, because there's something bigger in your life.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Invest in yourself to find out who and what you are.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Ethan Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. His name is Duncan Armstrong, and he became a household name when he claimed one of only 3 Olympic gold medals Australia won at the Seoul Games in 1988. The victory also broke the 200-meter freestyle world record to win Australia's 100th medal in Olympic competition. Coached and mentored by the charismatic and unstoppable Laurie Lawrence, Duncan's career in the pool spanned 10 years in the green and gold. And since retiring from competitive swimming, Duncan has received a host of national honours, including an Order of Australia Medal and Young Australian of the Year. And nowadays, Duncan divides his time raising his 5 children with his wife, Rebecca, and has maintained a corporate career with many of Australia's most recognised brands like Telstra, Westpac, Qantas, and is currently brand manager with Exercise and Sports Science Australia, along with being a broadcaster, dynamic event host, motivator, leadership consultant, and inspiring storyteller. And he's engaged in media work and corporate coaching, as well as the charitable partnerships and his services as a committed Christian, a truly inspirational Australian with a truly inspirational story. Welcome, Duncan, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Patton, that intro that you've just done has made me feel very, very good. So thank you, mate. It's very, very, very kind of you to have me on. And I'm looking forward to finding out what we're going to talk to over the next 45, 50 minutes, mate.
You're welcome, mate. I'm sure you introduce a lot of people with your speaking. So it's about, one way that I can give back and introduce you and make you feel good like that. And it's you've got an amazing journey, mate. And you've been a very successful entrepreneur. You're helping a lot of others as well. So just for those people that don't know who you are, introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Sure. So I grew up in the swimming world. I love swimming. I'm from Rockhampton originally. And then I came down to Brisbane to start training with the very colourful Laurie Lawrence. And he had the most powerful squad in the country. It was brutal, actually. It was antagonistic. It was hard work. It was a lot of kids. And regularly, Laurie would put 10 young Australians on our Olympic teams every 4 years and 15 Commonwealth Games champions every 4 years and things like that. So he had the best squad. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made for my swimming career, to come down, choose to do the work with Laurie, and he really sharpened me up to become a world-class swimmer. And then at the age of 20, I got to my first Olympic Games, which was in Seoul, South Korea in 1988. And I was able to beat the rest of the world and win a gold medal and break a world record in the men's 200 meters freestyle. And that really set me up kind of to go to another Olympics 4 years later, but really live my swimming dreams. I dreamt about being a swimmer all my life. I dreamt about being a champion like Steve Holland or John O'Seaven or Justin Lemberg and these other guys who went overseas to foreign lands with the green and gold on their back and wear that tracksuit for Australia so proudly and beat the best in the world. So that was my dream escape. And I was able to design a good enough plan, work hard enough on that plan tactically, and get to the Olympic Games and win. So I'm really, really proud of that. It's probably the most proudest I am of my achievements as an Australian, being able to do that. And so I went to 2 Olympic Games, won a gold and silver medal. And then I retired from swimming and went into a broadcasting career. So I had a fantastic media company for many, many years. I worked with Channel 9, Fox Sports, Channel 7, 2GB, 2UE. Went to the next 4 or 5 Olympic Games, or maybe 5 or 6 Olympic Games as a broadcaster, did the World Championships, watched the rise of Ian Thorpe and Grant Hackett and Susie O'Neill and Jeff Hugel and Petria Thomas, and went to all these Olympic Games. And our swim team just kept on winning gold and kept on breaking world records. So I was poolside and in the commentary team for all these incredible moments in sport and had a very, very small part to play in that. And then through my broadcasting, I really sort of developed my ability to be able to speak in front of audiences. And so I built a business around communication consultancy. So I was doing a lot of hosting, facilitating events. I was doing a lot of keynote speaking, motivational, inspirational, encouraging type offerings to audiences, big and small. So big room stuff, small room stuff, one-on-one, corporate coaching, and things like that. And basically, I based my business around all those lessons I learned in the elite sporting industry. And so I had some great leaders like Laurie Lawrence and Herb Elliott and Wayne Bennett and all these other great coaches and great leaders of athletes who had invested in me over time, big or small. I took all of those lessons and I started in the corporate market to do a lot of corporate coaching, corporate management, event management, and I'm still doing it today. So I've been doing that for about 36 years and worked with some, like you said in the intro, some fantastic companies. I worked with Telstra for 22 years. I worked with Westpac for 14 years, Holden, Qantas, all these iconic Australian companies I had the privilege of working with and developing their ambassador groups, developing their ambassador stables to be able to represent them. And some of these companies had very, very large properties like the NRL and Tennis Australia and AFL and all these very, very large, sporting fabrics of this country and culture. So I had the privilege of working with so many elite athletes and so many elite leaders in corporate life. And I'm still doing it today with the Olympic Games coming up in the next 7 years here in Southeast Queensland. I'm uniquely placed to look at that emerging market with all the lessons that we learnt leading up to Sydney and the Sydney delivery in 2000 of the greatest games ever, and being able to work with those corporate companies and the Olympic Games and the infrastructure companies that really built and delivered the games. We know what's coming for the next 7 years in terms of this market. It's going to be chaotic. And I feel I've got the right businesses at the right time to offer something very, not maybe unique, but something very valuable that I'll be able to help companies get their athletes together, help shape their messages, control their narratives, and deliver great value into this emerging market. So that's basically where I see my entrepreneur background, and also with a bit of an eye on the future of the next 7 years with this very, very chaotic 2032 Olympic market that's happening here in Games Central, Southeast Queensland.
Yeah, amazing, mate. What a story. I love it. So many things. And what I love about sport, right, is that there's so many correlations with that in business, you know what I mean? Around the mindset side and, achieving things and all of that. And I think the one big word that you said there was you had a dream, right? And I think that sounds really important to me, right? Like, how important do you think a dream, of a vision of what you want to achieve, right? Whether it's Olympic gold like you have, which is amazing, right? At the top of your game there in the world, or achieving something in business, there's a lot of correlation. How important do you think that is? And what should we be doing when we're thinking about, that dream to go on and ideally achieve it?
And I think you're onto it, mate. It all starts with your ability to dream. And if you don't have an ability to dream, then it's going to really stunt how far you can go. And so, I'm neurotic. I do a lot of work in my head. I build a lot of castles in my head. I build a lot of dreams in my head. And then I test them to see if I can actually achieve them. So, I'm a big believer in doing the thought work and then doing the subliminal work, the rehearsal work in your head. Rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. Get it solidly into your subconscious, and then you can transfer it into your conscious. But unless you've got a really, really strong picture, the market's too tough to do without dreams. It's simply as that. It doesn't matter if you're in business, corporate, doesn't matter what sector, whether it's be finance, whether it be media, whether it be sport, whether it be, even running your family. You need a picture of what success looks like. You need a picture to drive you forward, a compelling dream for you to go and achieve. That's where it really hits the road of success, if you ask me. You must start with a dream. And it doesn't matter where you come from. And then if you're brave enough to put it up on a wall so you can stare at it all day long. I put the world record on everything. Everywhere I spent my time, I put the world record, 147.44, the 200 meters freestyle world record owned by Michael Gross from Germany for 5 years. I put it on the steering wheel of my car. I put it on the fridge. I put it on the pantry because I was spending a lot of time at the fridge and pantry. And I put it on my bedside table. I put it on my mirror. And everywhere I went, my dream, the world record, was looking at me, because then I could assess, I could assess that no matter what I was doing in that moment, when my eyes hit that world record, I could make a judgment whether I'm standing closer to that with the behavior that I'm doing, or it was creeping further away because of the behavior I was doing. So I was able to assess all the time whether I was moving towards it or it was getting away from me. And, so I go to the fridge and I want to eat rubbish. Well, is that going to move me further away from the world record that's staring at me on the fridge? Or am I going to eat something a little bit more healthier that makes me one step closer to that? So when I get in my car, am I going down to the pub to drink with my mates who aren't swimmers? Good blokes, great friends, but they don't have the world record that's compelling them to sort of think about how many drinks I'm going to have. So it might be I'm only going to have one drink and I do go home, right? And that's a step in the right direction. So this is where your dreams come from. If you're brave enough to put these signposts, then you'll control your behavior compulsions. And you can move closer to better behavior today, because you only got today. Today, life happens today. All right. So every single day, if I can move close to my dream by staring at it, that's what I'll do. Now, I was in an intense atmosphere. I was in an intense environment. Waiting for me at 3:30 in the afternoon and 4:15 every morning was Laurie Lawrence, and he took no prisoners. So the guy that I'd gotten into teamwork with, into relationship with, had the strategy, but I had to fulfill the tactics, and the tactics happen every day. So I had a strategy. Yep, that's in the future, and I'm working towards it, but I work towards it today. So this is where dreams come into it. Dream your big dreams. I want, and then put your signposts up that work for you. And these little signposts for me with the world record up really worked for me. And so I was able to put up with the intensity because my dream was so strong. And it was with me every day. So I lived that dream for 5 years straight until I achieved it. So I do the same sort of modeling in my business life. If I, and it works on my behaviors that I'm no good at. If I'm no good, like when I first got out of the water, I rejected any kind of time frames because swimming is so time orientated. It's how many laps, what time you got, what time you're at the pool, what time is there to eat, what time the race goes. 4 years down the track at 7 o'clock on the 19th of September, the Olympic 200 metres final is going to start. I know that. So it's all about time. And I really rejected that. And I grew into a very bad habit of being late for it. And I kind of liked it. I felt like I was a bit entitled. I wasn't addressing it because I wasn't that aware yet. But I just kind of cruised around. I was 10, 15 minutes, so a little bit like for our recording today. So I had to do something about it because I found out from a psychologist that it was really bad entitlement. It was, I was lucky to have any friends at all, if that's the way I was treating him. I was lucky to have a job. So I sort of learnt this lesson. I thought, well, how do I renovate this behavior that I know I need to be good at? And so I put signs out again, like the world record, like I just spoke about. And they were very simple: be on time, right? And I put them all in the usual places: fridge, pantry, mirror, car, and it got me in the shower earlier, it got me into traffic earlier, it got me to work earlier. And so then when I renovated this behavior, it's very small, but it's something I can control and it works towards my goal as being the best broadcaster in the world. So I would arrive ready to work at shift. I would arrive at the pool early, ready to work poolside on the commentator. I arrived early for the edit. I arrived early because I renovated this behavior atom. It sounds very small, but I would get a boost every time I was on time because I know I've done this for my dreams. And so even today, when I walk in and I'm early, I feel it. And it's a good feeling. It's a positive feeling. And it also tells me that I'm ready to work today on what my dreams are and what my goal sets are. So again, it's how you treat yourself to get in your best state to chase your dreams today, because life happens only today. Tomorrow's not born yet, and yesterday's dead. It's only today. So that's my mindset and how I use these tools to make sure that, yes, I've got big dreams, and today I'm going to actually chase them by doing small behaviors that make me a winner.
Yeah, I love that. So much gold in there. And a couple of key things, right, that I'll take out for everyone here is that on top of the dream, you had the key number, right? There you had the world record. And I say the same thing in business. Like, what's the key number for you? And it doesn't have to be a revenue or a profit number. It could be a key number of how many people you need to get in touch with, an impact number, whatever it is, because then you have the guiding light. Go, okay, this is what I'm heading towards. So that's what I would take out, right? Of going, what Duncan's saying is that that's how you get, for example, success in business as well, whatever it is that you're doing, right? Understand that key number, because we are driven on numbers a lot of the time on what it is there, so we can measure that. And then on the coaching mentoring side, Obviously, I think one of it's environment, right? You're in the environment, you put yourself in the environment where you had the best chance of success, right? If you're around people in business that are, or in the pool that are not doing too well or not doing too well in business, well, what do you think is going to happen, right? Whereas if you put yourself with the best coaches, the best, people that are participating, right? Your colleagues, you got the best possible chance, right? Because you're all pushing each other in that way. And I think the environment is a big factor, to success, as well as like your preparation and your practice, right? And I think a lot of people don't think about that as much. I always do it, preparing for big meetings. I prepare, you practice your pitch, right? If you're pitching to someone, you got to practice it, right? Like as much as you might be good at winging it, practicing is a big part of it because it becomes more natural, after that, and then you know what's going on. So I think there's so many great lessons in what you just said there, which is really powerful. One thing I want to touch on, right, because there's a problem in Australia, as you would know, called the tall poppy syndrome, right? And and it's people want to cut you down, right? You start to do a little bit too well, and it just looks to the dream a little bit, right? Because there could be some people out there going, you can't do that, and all this type of stuff, right? So what do you say to people, right? If that's coming into their life, or what happens as you start to maybe achieve some things, and how to impact it and bounce back, I guess, from that.
Oh, look, this is a great question. And mate, on your podcast, you've talked to so many Uber winners, so many Uber successful people, really top flight industry leaders. And they would probably answer it slightly different every single time because we must work it out for ourselves. We're all from different family backgrounds. We've all had different childhoods. So therefore, we take a lot of that sort of behavior into what we call success. And you call it out, what is your success profile? And so the tall poppy syndrome is real. We live in this environment that's almost very communist in the way we present, but we don't talk about it like that. So again, it comes back to who and what you are, because the application of grace for me has been a winning formula on the tall poppy syndrome. As I learned more about what grace does for me, then I can apply it to other people. And when other people don't get me, that's really okay, because I can apply grace to, because they don't know me. Like I can walk through the years with many family members and many really deep friendships, and they can still say the worst negative thing to me when I express a little bit of my heart. When I can say, you know what, I wouldn't mind a $10 million business by the end of the year. Mate, look at you like you're a raving lunatic. Okay? Now that's on them. That's not on me. And so if they do say something negative, I can quickly apply grace to it because it's my dream. And that's what I'm going to do. But to your point, just before you ask that question, it is environmental. If you hang around turkeys, you start gobbling like that. And that's not saying all my friends are turkeys and everything like that. But they don't walk the same path as me. I'm in relationship and friendship, and they know me, and I'm transparent and all that kind of thing. We're deep. I get it. Okay. But I have to allow them to have their feelings, because you can't control that. And it's how you're going to react as a winner over and over and over again to low value comments is whether you're going to get exhausted by 5 p.m. or you're going to be in flow state at 5 p.m. because you cannot get everybody around you to understand your heart, your dreams, and why you do things. So why bother? But it takes discipline. We are compelled to recruit. We're compelled to encourage, to lead, to get excited, to bring people on board, to all these sort of things. But you actually can't make them. And you must start disciplining your behavior, your outcomes, your mind, and your emotions about how people view you, because it's really none of your business. What people think, it's really none of your business. Okay? But we kind of fantasize to ourselves that we can actually control outcomes in terms of what we say to people, and we can't. So you've got to discipline yourself. There are going to be times when you're surrounded by people who totally get you. You can build a team around like-minded people who encourage you in the same way, and you can get these flow states for years. And we get nostalgic when we look back into our past and we go, hey, remember that team that delivered that big, awesome, hairy goal? Oh man, how much fun was that? And you get very misty-eyed because those were the moments where you had this environment and the people in the environment were very, very like-minded. But then we switch and we chase another opportunity. We come into a very tough environment and the goalposts change, the outcomes change, the vibe changes, all these sort of things. It's very different from the flow state we just had. And you have to have grace to apply into that, to sort of say, okay, well, the goals might be different, but I'm the same. And I'm going to bring the same values, the same beliefs, the same discipline, and the same, but I might not get the feedback I just got. And that's going to be okay too, because the dream remains and it's my dream. I'll give you a quick example. I went away to the 1986 Commonwealth Games as an 18-year-old, my first big international team, and I had unbelievable success. I won 2 gold medals, the 400 freestyle, and I was part of this Commonwealth record-breaking 4x200 freestyle relay. Really, really exciting stuff. Super intense outcomes, fantastic. And it was the first moment that I actually thought my dreams could come true, because I'd gone away with the green and gold on, and I had success. So I was vibing. I was just peaking, and I got home, and my family was there, and we had such an amazing time. And someone who I thought knew me really, really well came up to me and said, "Mate, how lucky are you? You can retire now and just have a great time with the rest of us." And I remember looking at him going, "You're insane. I've just started the journey with something decent," and I felt this huge chasm between one of my closest mates and what my dream was. And I remember looking at him going, "Man, is anybody ever going to understand me?" Right? Which is an 18-year-old thought. Now at 57, I look back at that experience and I go, yeah, I've been able to have that same experience 30 times in my life, both corporately, in sport, and things like that. So I've been very lucky to come into this question and answer this question for myself over and over and over again. But if you're looking for people to totally get you, it's an endless search. And you really should retain some of that and apply grace, right? And retain the energy and get on with living your dreams.
Yeah, I love a great way, and then that's the resilience, right? That you've got to go through. I'm the same as well. What I've done there, and yeah, I share some things, and people think it's not possible, I'm crazy or whatever. But there's a great line I learned that the universe rewards the unreasonably determined, right?
Yeah,
So
yes, that's a good one, mate.
yeah,
And that's actually, and like, that's in line with the harder you work, the luckier you get. And so the universe, as you say, rewards. That's good.
yeah, it's a good one. And speed as well, right? Like how quickly you implement as well, because you can have an idea and you can do things and work hard, but doing it and building the momentum, right? In anything, there's always a momentum effect, and and you build on that, right? So I think it's so powerful on what you said, and I think part of it, right, is growing ourselves. You know what I mean? Like the mindset side, because who you were at that young age, or even winning those gold medals, right, at the Commonwealth Games, and then going, okay, I can actually make this happen. You need to then grow again, right, like to that next level of success, and what you need to do. And it's like, what are the beliefs, and how do I improve my mindset? What because it's not just the strategies and the tactics, right? It's the mindset and the identity to some extent, right, that needs to grow from there. So what could you say to people that I guess needing that help for that jump, right, to that next level of what they've been doing, and how they need to be thinking, or yeah, growing from there?
Yeah, look, that's a really good area that we're now approaching, mate, because I think to your point, which you've just made, it does come back to you. It does come back to you. It's how much you're willing to invest in yourself. See, the results are a byproduct of this. And, over the last 10 years, my business partner and I, we've been really focusing on how we communicate to corporate leaders about this space, especially. Because, as a corporate leader, you're probably a bit of a workaholic. You're really target oriented. You're strong tactically. You might have a great deal of leadership and strategy as well, which makes you the corporate leader that you are. But you only have a certain amount of time, and everybody has the same amount of time. We get 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. So what are you going to do with that time, and where is the best investment for your time? And we've come up with sort of 4 columns that have to be addressed in your existence as a person. And the first one, well, you can have them in any sort of like importance level or priority, but there's 4 that exist: the spirituality, emotionally, intellectually, and physically. These 4 areas of your life, physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually, must be addressed, because they're your growth engines. And so if you're in a position, you've got a big goal out there and you're going really, really well, but you seem to keep on hitting a ceiling with your emotions, then you need to do the work in the column for your emotions. You need to invest in maybe some therapy, maybe it's some, courses, maybe it's but you need to spend time understanding where you are emotionally and getting some growth in that column if you're hitting a ceiling. Spirituality, we're spiritual beings, whether you're into when you're any of the big monolithic religions, or you're into the multi-theist, whatever you're into, you have a spiritual place in your being that has to be fed. And if you're stunted spiritually, you might not be able to even dream big, because you might not have that life is bigger than just me. You might be too selfish. You might be too insular. You might be too looking at your own sort of navel gazing, the old saying. You might be doing that. So the spirituality really brings out and maybe limits your entitlement in terms of what's fair, what's not fair, because there's something bigger in your life. And then you've got the physical, and we all know the physical, as we drive around in Ubers and cars and stuff like that, we're not getting enough exercise. And physically, you might be eating the wrong thing. So you're limited because you're not exercising enough and eating shit. So again, physical. And then you got your intellectual. What are you learning? What are you reading? How are you getting off your screen and spending time in a book? Which books are you reading? All the leaders that I've seen who have done anything spectacular are readers. It's a real, it's a map. You can do a deep dive because of the internet. You can get to any leader at any time and check out his preferences for the discipline he applies to get that level of leadership. Now, we do it with athletes, and the intensity that sports people stalk champions can be applied to corporate life and is by uber winners. Quick question. A quick story that made a big effect on me. When I started in my corporate life, I thought I'd be walking away from a lot of the principles from my elite sporting background. I didn't think the corporate industry was as intense as sport, because that was my own experience. Okay, again, young, immature thoughts. And it wasn't until I got sort of like halfway into my corporate life, 4 or 5 years down the track, that I actually found the same values showing up with the winners. And I came across a story from overseas. It was on the internet, and it was about who's the great big investor in the United States. He's getting quite old now, from Berkshire Capital.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah. So Warren Buffett tells this story about he would look at a new market, an emerging market, and he would get the youngest, finest, most out there person in the Wall Street Journal into his office, and he'd basically put him through a framework of questioning, and it consisted of about 14 questions that really worked well for Warren to recognize a new market. So the online market, the software market's about to be stood up. So he gets this bright young entrepreneur in called Bill Gates. So Microsoft is just about to become Microsoft. And Bill Gates is a very intelligent bloke, wants to build this dream company, wants to take over the world, reduce the population. That's another story. Anyway, so Warren Buffett gets him in. Bill Gates is thrilled to meet Warren Buffett. Now, both are family men, deeply into it. So they're emotional, and they're spiritual, and they're physical, and they're intellectual pillars of activity are constantly being addressed. They want to grow as men, and their leadership goes along for the ride. Their companies go along for the ride. So again, going back to the question, what can I do to become a great leader, or how can I get the outcomes in this market that I've got dreams about and that I want outcomes about? I've got my $10 million check in my wallet, whatever tools I'm using to fuel my dreams. Then what time am I spending on who and what I am in my 4 columns? And then what does my behavior and investment look like per week and per day into my 4 columns? And am I going to be brave enough and courageous enough to possibly go against my environment, my friends group, my corporate culture, to feed these 4 columns in a disciplined behavior group for the week, so I grow, so I get into my flow state more, so I learn more about me, who and what I am, and then how does that crystallize into behaviors for my dreams? Because if I spend time investing in who I am, the outcomes will look very, very different as I move towards my dream.
Yeah, love it, mate. So powerful. And I love that it's so simple. It's like, what are the areas that I need to improve? And, we all need to improve. I think that's the mindset that I always tell my clients as well, right? Like, always have a student mind, even myself, right? I never know everything like that. It's like I can always learn. And even if I hear the same information again, it's like I'm re-ingraining it into myself. It doesn't matter, right? I don't discount it. and it allows me to keep growing and being this new person. So I love that. So powerful, and having that reflection going, where do I need to do it? And this is where, coaches and mentors, like how you help, your clients and everything, and what I do helps, right? Because it's like, if you're stuck in it, can't see it sometimes. You need someone from the outside going, hey, I think maybe you should focus in this little area. Let's delve a little bit deeper in there and guide us right into that process, which can be really, really powerful. So I love that. So awesome. And one big thing that you're big on, right, that I love to chat on now is like public speaking, right? Because you do, you've done a lot of broadcasting, speaking. I've done a lot of speaking as well. But I think a lot of people out there have that learned fear of public speaking, right? And I think in this world, I talk a lot about personal branding. I think we need to be putting ourselves out there more to be able to influence people, being a better leader. How can we make it more of an impact? And I think speaking in whatever context, whether it's a small group or thousands of people or anything in between, I think is a very powerful skill. So for the people that want to improve, what can we think about? What could we do to become, a better public speaker?
Yeah, well, there's two parts to answering your question, mate. And I think it's a really, really good question to answer. The first part is you got to get your why right. It's the old Simon Sinek, what's your why? Why do you want to be a public speaker? Is it just because you like torturing yourself? But if you come back with, I want to be a public speaker because I want to influence people, or I want to promote what I do, I want to share what I do, then your why starts to take a little bit of shape. And because as soon as you get your why right, you basically work out who your audience is initially going to be. And then you have to drop down and access your courage. And Winston Churchill, I think, said, courage is the foundation of all the traits because everything grows out of that. So you're trying to access your curiosity into your why. You're trying to base, what am I about? Why do I want to do this? What is the outcome I'm seeking? And that'll really inform your why. And then you drop down into your courage. Am I willing to learn enough to go out to this very uncomfortable environment, feel the adrenaline burn, handle the risk about maybe I'll bomb, and decide to become a speaker. Now, every CEO, every COO, every C-suite should learn how to speak. It gives your leadership such power if you start being comfortable about speaking in front of crowds. Now, we can get into the nuts and bolts of how to pull together a keynote, because your keynote can be various topics, and there are so many experts out there in the topics that they want to speak about. So then it's about cutting down on the complication. Everything about this environment you're prone to be frightened by. The audience will frighten you. The environment will frighten you. The lead up to your keynote speaking will frighten you. But again, repetition is the mother of all skill. And by putting a few things in place, you can start improving. So you start small. You start with your family. You practice, like you said before, Athen, you practice your pitch, you practice your pitch, you practice your pitch. All of these behaviors can be practiced, can be coached. Okay. You can bring people in to really help you out. But again, going back to it, if you're going to be a leader of any description, you must learn how to speak in public, and you must buy into the why for your improvement. Now, we can get into how to construct a keynote. You basically get your 3 favorite stories together that kill, and you just find a little bridge between 3 of them. Those 3 stories will give you 10 minutes. So there's your 10 minutes. If you're doing a keynote about who and what you are. But if you're a subject matter expert, if you build a career in any sort of industry, you've got something to talk about because you've got all that amazing experience. And like we've done today on this podcast, you start with a story that reminds you of this, that leads into the lesson of that, hopefully the outcome you're looking for. But keynote speaking, or speaking in front of audience, big or small, is a skill that you must master. And of course, we're going to sit up there and we're going to talk about the studies that it's the second craziest thing people fear, other than death. That's all bullshit. Because if your why is strong, hey, you're going to be a speaker. So get on with it. So if you've got something to share and you want to contribute, learn how to speak.
Yeah, I love it. So powerful, right? I think the fear element, is a big one, right? And it's like being okay being average, let's call it, at the start, right? Because I think, if we look back at both of us doing the first ever speech or the first ever video we did, right?
Mm.
It's average. Like, you look at my first podcast, I'm like, it's very different to what I am now. But people see, you were born for this. And I go, no, I went through the hard yards of going, how can I improve and become more confident, more competent, right, in what I do over a period of time, and naturally you get better, right, with all these skills that you've been talking about, the discipline and all of that, right, that becomes part of it. So I think that's the biggest thing. And what I tell people is, like, do a live once a week on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, right? Like, that's a good way to practice. Like, if you're just doing out there to sort of work it out. Now, yes, practice your speech as well, but practice speaking. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? It's like going to the gym. You gotta lift the weights. You're not going to get big muscles or whatever, or have a lot of fitness the first time you go, and then you don't go anymore, right? You got to do it consistently and build it up over time, right? As well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, mate. And people are always jealous of what you got, not how you got it. And so you're looking at a pretty professional and complete product with yourself, with your podcasting and stuff. But it's like anything. It's like you're writing in your pad in year one. By the end of year one, you're writing okay. But by the end of year two, that looks like a joke. And by the end of year three, you're now killing it. And then you go to cursive and stuff like that. So we're used to these rhythms of improvement already. But packed into public speaking is this fear of being embarrassed. And if you don't have a strong enough why, that becomes too consuming. Whereas if you've got a strong why, because I want to contribute, not just to me, but to the crowd and stuff like that, then it's less about how the crowd receives it and more about your quality of delivery. And that's, once you get that transfer on, and once you value what you've got to say yourself, you know that the people will as well. Now, you can get into the percentage that every audience that I speak to for the rest of my life, 10% are so up for it. 50%, they think it's okay. 20%, they don't even know who I am. And 10% hate it, right? I think that's about 100%. But that's on average every single room you're going to walk into. So own it. Find the people that you're talking to, or they're getting a real buzz out of it. Stick with them. If you're making them happy, most of the people in the room will get it. And that's all you can hope for. But if you don't have a strong why or understand the percentages when you walk out there, and you think everybody's got to get off the planet and have the best time of their life, you're going to fail. And if you concentrate on what you failed at in terms of the 10%, you'll never come back. So you've got to move away from that, own it, get your why right, keep practicing like crazy, and become the speaker you deserve to be.
Yeah, I love it. So true. It's so powerful. And one thing I'll say to people, right, is that what I do for myself is, like, I give myself a little pep talk before, right? I'm sure you do this in sport as well, right? It's like I tell myself what's going to happen, right? Like, it happens a lot in tennis, because tennis, that, like swimming, right, is an individual sport a lot of the time, so you have to sort of battle yourself, right? I'm going, I got to get back, I got to do better, and everything like that, compared to like soccer that I play, which is a team sport, a little bit different. But I think, my first time I spoke was quick 5 minutes in front of like my company's quarterly meeting. They asked me to speak about the social club for 5 minutes because they put me in front of it, and everyone was like, oh, I was falling asleep before, and then I was like, amazing, I want to join, right? And I was like, okay, that was interesting. And then, because there's a small, fine line between nervousness and excitedness, right? So I just made myself a bit more excited, because it's a very similar energy. So that's one little tactic at the start, right, that you can use. Eventually you'll curb that better, and it'll become more natural. But then the second time I spoke was in front of 2,500 people in the US, right? So from like a small group, that was the second time. And then it's like saying yes and figuring out how after. A lot of people go, how can I do that? I haven't even spoken, and done all this stuff. It's like, well, I just gave myself the pep talk, said I was going to go out there, deliver an amazing speech, whatever it was, exactly what you were talking about, Duncan. And that's what happened, right? So, don't live in fear, say what you want to happen. And that's the most likely thing, that will happen from there.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And, practice makes progress. And so all you want to do is be better than last time. You don't want to be perfect. You don't want to be any of that rubbish in terms of a complete product, because we're just never going to be. We're on an arc here. It's not a destination. So you just want to progress better than last time, more than last time. I love watching other speakers like yourself and others who sort of go about it. What's their rituals? What's their prep time? How many times do they, make this example, that? Are they pulling examples back from their own experience? That's what I really love. I love seeing experienced speakers get up there and say, you know what I saw today? I learned something today. And they tell you that their curiosity and their want of knowledge and their discipline every day to be open to it has taught them something, and now they're sharing it because they're that good a speaker. They've interpreted the lesson and they can spit the story out in a very entertaining way and why it affected them and what they're going to utilize this particular lesson that they learned today in the future. And so that's when speaking really becomes teaching. Speaking really transfixes an audience and takes us on a journey. Because, I think it was Andrew Denton that sort of described it this way. He said, there's polite silence in an audience, and then there's this deep silence. And the deep silence arrives when the speaker is really taking them on a journey. And if you can convert audience members to sort of, when you land a point, they go, that's right. That's a lesson accepted. That is I see myself in that lesson, and I understand what you've just said, and I'm willing to go and try. For a speaker, that sort of deep silence and that acknowledgement with that's right is the audience transporting to a willingness to have a rip, a willingness to give it a good old Aussie go, give it a rip, right? Give it a crack. So for me, that's what I'm hunting for. I'm actually trying to get my audiences, because I do my prep work on who and what they are, where they're going, what might be useful. I go to my factory of storytelling, pull it together, turn it into a tailored presentation that starts here and takes everybody to a that's right moment, if I can. And that's what I'm trying to produce. And so we have this ability to tell stories, to encourage people to use our life stories, the current market stories, outcomes, to start fostering that curiosity and bravery, courage for them to start getting their dream together. Now, you can see where we've traveled with this conversation into what I'm really passionate about. And it took 25, 30 minutes. But that's what I'm on about when I present. I really want to take people on a journey, and I really want to paint pictures so they can see themselves in it, of what I've learned, where I'm going, see themselves in it, and start building their own dream.
Yeah, I love it. And one thing I'll tell everyone what Duncan's done very well today, exactly what he did about the stories, right? And every point you've shared a story, whether it's about yourself, or whether it's about somebody else, like Warren Buffett, right? So it doesn't always have to be your own stories in there. And that's what makes your answer so captivating and memorable and everything like that, right? And what you're doing. So I'm just doing it from the context of learning for people here, right? It's like Duncan, does what he preaches, he preaches that and all of that there. And those little things there is like the big differences between, an average speaker and a great speaker. And it's okay if you're average at the start, but if you want to keep improving, that's the level of what you need to be doing to really let the points land. So I think it's really powerful for people to have that awareness now and go, okay, now I see why I'm following this conversation and going really well.
Yeah, and you're right onto it, Aston. Like, you're talking about the nuts and bolts of content now. And see, we are a ball of experiences. And quite frankly, if people watch it, if you can land one lesson out of becoming a good speaker, it's this one. If you liked it, other people will like it. So tell the story of what you liked about it, whatever it is, the experience that you've had, like my Warren Buffett story. We'll go back to that. I experienced a learning from Warren Buffett off the internet about the discipline of asking smarter people than him about emerging markets, with a disciplined 14-question set that he translated into making massive decisions on the stock market. Right? I will never carry that kind of risk that Warren Buffett does, ever. But I have the same 24 hours in the day to learn stuff, like Warren does. So my lessons out of that, I found really, really interesting for me. And I know when I tell that stories in front of audiences, they'll find it interesting too. So if it interests you, it interests them. It doesn't have to be about you. It just has to be why you liked it. And that's it. And you can be, I had this experience, whatever the topic is, just tell them from your experiences. It doesn't have to be about you. It's how it fueled your change, success, disciplines, behavior. It sets you up to feed your 4 columns, whatever it is. Whatever the experience is, just share your experiences. That's speaking.
Yeah, love it. So powerful there. And mate, you shared so much gold with us here today. And I love it. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up here today, Duncan, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
I think the foundation of everything that I'm talking about is invest in yourself to find out who and what you are. Sometimes we can spend decades thinking we're one thing, but unless we feed that emotional, physical, spiritual, and intellectual columns in our life, we actually never really uncover who and what we are. And when you do the who and what you are work, the investment just pays off everywhere, from your relationships, your really, really foundational relationships with your partners and your children and your parents and everything like that, to your churches, to your corporates, to your friendships, to everything. This is the most important work you'll ever do. Take time and get into a discipline in self-investment to work out who and what you are. It doesn't sound too sexy. Like, I wish I had a stock tip for you, or told you to, hey, in the next 7 years, come to Southeast Queensland and buy this property. Work out who and what you are. Work out your why, and then set up your disciplines around that, from your dailies to your weeklies to your monthlies, and chase those dreams.
Yeah, so true. I love it. And I've got a young son under one at the time now, and I think the awareness, the amount of time, energy, money that I've invested in myself, and the awareness I have now for him, to give him the best possible chance that we can change the next generation, like you said, right, as well as the other people that we're working with and impacting in this world. I think we can, it's massive, right, of that ripple effect of what it does. So I completely agree on that one, Duncan. It's an amazing point, and until you go through it, then you only know, right? And going, wow, I have all this extra awareness and what I can do from here. So it's so powerful of what you shared today, mate. And we connected through our networks. I learned about your awesome journey from winning Olympic gold medal for Australia at the Seoul Games in 1998 to being a broadcaster, dynamic event host, motivator, leadership consultant, and inspiring storyteller. You're an awesome guy, mate. So you shared so much gold with us here today, right? On how to think, the mindset wise success, public speaking, so many areas that are related to business, right? And helping us to move forward, to achieve our goals, to achieve our dream in that area there. And I'm sure you continue to help people create their peak impact and achieve success, man. I'm very grateful that we connected. Look forward to partnering with you as well. So, Duncan, how can people find you and get in contact with you as well?
I'm on LinkedIn and, of course, Facebook, so you can just find me through there if you'd like. And I've also got a website called peakimpact.com.au, where we do a lot of our corporate work and things like that. So if anybody is looking for me, just reach out on those platforms, and we'll connect and see if we can work together. But Athen, this has been great, mate. I've enjoyed your podcast since we met up just a couple of months ago, and I've sort of been doing my research on you, and you've talked to so many spectacular people who've got so many different perspectives. And what comes from my viewing of your content is just that, talking about dreams and being courageous enough to chase them. So, mate, it's been a good journey, and thanks very much, mate. I look forward to doing some more work together somewhere down the track.
Definitely. Thanks, mate. Much appreciated on that one. And yes, same to you. Definitely check out Duncan there. Connect with him, right, on LinkedIn, website, all of that. Amazing guy. And mate, it's been a pleasure interviewing you. Thanks for being on the Business Growth Show. Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Ethan Cassiotis, or visit my website, ethancassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you'd reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.